You could be in a ton of pain and have no damage and vice versa. And then really just not relying on all these passive modalities and really empowering yourself. And unless we're in a full body cast, you should be doing something. You should be going back to jujitsu. It's just a matter of these different levels. Okay, maybe I'm watching class. Maybe I'm just drilling. Maybe I'm flow rolling. Like there should never be a time where it's like, unless you're like post surgical or something, you should not be going. Like I really wanted to get that across. And the pain just isn't completely biological. There's a lot of that psychological and social that's contributing to your pain as well. Not to overwhelm people anymore or complicate it any further than it needs to be. But I want people to feel empowered and not be so afraid of everything.
Wes, welcome to the show, man.
It's psyched to be here, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Like we were saying pre-show, I'm such a fan. You have such a fantastic IG and just a social and YouTube and everything presence. Your content is just fantastic.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate you even recognizing that because I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like the algorithm hates me. So other than my mom or my wife, I don't even think anyone sees my content some days.
I feel you, man. I totally feel you. So Wes, for the people out there who have like no context of who you are, what you do, can you give us the rundown?
Yeah. So I'm a chiropractor. So I have a doctorate in that. Then I also have a degree in exercise science, and I have another one in human biology. And I've kind of done this hybrid blend for the last almost 10 years now, where I've kind of combined rehab training and everything I learned in chiropractics with everything I learned in my exercise science background. So I'm somewhere between a chiropractor and a trainer.
Now, you've definitely dealt with the people within the jujitsu community and high level athletes I know, and hobbyists and your desk workers and the whole thing too. I know that. Oftentimes when people are looking for solutions, we're not in the, medical space or in the PT space or anything. We're just sort of like reaching at things randomly. We just don't know who to talk. When do I talk to my doctor? When do I talk to a masseuse? When do I go to a hot tub, a sauna? What is a PT? What is all these different things? Help someone like that who's in a particular situation, let's say, whatever, lower back pain, whatever it may be. And that can mean a million different things and age and whatever, Help that person decide, where do I go? What should I do?
Whoa. Okay.
Or who should I seek out,
Yeah, that's a super loaded question. And keep in mind for the listeners here, lower back pain is ambiguous. It can mean it's like saying martial arts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Okay.
Oh my gosh, how many do we have under that umbrella? It's
Right.
really the same thing when it comes to back pain. And the interesting thing about that is, and I may go off on a tangent here, so please redirect me if I do. Things that help certain types of back pain can make other types of back pain worse. So that's why like ChatGPT, Google, Instagram, just like, how do I fix my back pain? Like it might be the right thing. It might be the completely wrong thing, and it can make it worse. So, and it's a great question you're asking. Like I'm trying to, like, as I'm speaking here, how do I want to answer this? How do I want to address this? Because with like that kind of nuance in mind, that some things can make it better, some things can make it worse. For the general person where it's not like pain, maybe it's just achiness, stiffness. It's from being lazy, from being someone sitting at a desk all day, not being a human being actually doing the things we're supposed to be doing, of moving around, getting like 100 steps a day. And you're like, why does my back hurt? I would say we need to start grasping at low hanging fruits. Just like, what are we doing for steps on a daily? Like that is something I get it's more and more now when I work with people, like, pull out your phone. How many steps have you gotten? And it's like, it's 7 p.m. at night and I've gotten 500. Like, you've gotten 500 steps? Like, you have to try to get that little of steps. Like, of course your back hurts. You haven't been moving. Like, move your fucking ass a little. You know what I mean?
And this is super common, right?
Oh my, it's amazing. Like, I was talking to a patient the other day. The most steps he gets is when he parks at the bagel shop and walks in and walks out of the bagel shop. I live in the city. I'm getting 15, 20,000 on a regular basis. I'm never driving, so it's not top of mind. But people don't realize how little they move throughout the day when they're just stuck in front of screens or in computers all day long. So I think to answer that question, I kind of just came to an answer as I went on a tangent. We need to start with moving around. The amount that we would probably fix, forget about stretching, strengthening, all those cool things we see on social media. Just move more. Like, we need to start simple and then go more complex here. It's like a first day weight belt. They're not teaching you how to invert and do all these cool things on day
Exactly.
one.
Yeah.
It's the same concept right here. Let's just start with walking.
Mm.
You'd be amazed on how much mileage we could get out of something so stupid and so simple.
Wow, that's it's awesome that you mentioned that walking in general because it's funny. My academy owner where I train, he's very physical, super strong guy and all this stuff, and done all these workouts and stuff. And now walking's his thing. And he's like, man, walking is the best. He's like, I found, through, academy owners, what kind
Uh,
of wear and tear they have to put on
of
themselves. They're
course.
rolling all day long, all night long, every single day. And having life and all that stuff. But just so something as innocuous as walking, such a benefit, it's amazing.
It can be so meditative too, throw on a podcast, blank
Some
out for a
people are
minute.
rucking on it too,
Yeah, 100%. Throw on a 20-pound vest. I have no problem with that. Like,
Mm,
I think that's great. That's
mm,
that's even the next step beyond that. And we don't need to get obsessed with that 10,000, 12. Like, do
mhm.
5,000, 7,500. If you do too much too soon of anything, you'll probably we're going to have some issues. It's like you start jujitsu and you're so excited about it. You start going 5 days a week for 3 weeks. Your fingers hurt, your back hurts, your knees hurt because you're just not used to doing it. Just gradually build up to it.
Help the practitioners out there figure out when to seek someone like you. When should we come see you?
Yeah. So pain. So this is an interesting discussion too, because now we're getting into like pain and what is pain? What is our perception of pain? When is pain bad? When is pain maybe not so bad? I would say when you need to seek out somebody for help. If it's been going on so long and it's inhibiting what you're doing, like you time off the mat, you're not going to class, or you're sitting out, or you're not rolling anymore, or you find yourself more often than not, I can't do that position or that technique. And maybe not because of age or like a general flexibility limitation, or for example, I have a torn meniscus, so I can't really play butterfly guard anymore. But it's just things that you could have done now you can't do because of this new pain that's popped up. So if it's really becoming a hindrance or a pain in the ass, it's probably better to stop ignoring it and seek someone out at that point in time.
So primarily then, I'm sure the vast majority, if not everyone that you see is someone that has an issue, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to someone who's like, this is the super rare case, right? I'm in prime, great condition, I'm doing everything right or whatever. And I'm going to see you because I just want to add on to the awesomeness.
So this is the interesting part about having a completely remote business, and I have people working with me from all over the world. When I was in person, absolutely, to your point, no one saw me when they were doing awesome. But now that I'm remote, people all over the world, because I'm not limited by where I live, probably 50% of the people that seek out to work with me is because of actually they're doing so awesome and they want to take it to the next level, or they want to
Mm.
exceed their potential, or we've gotten them out of pain. So they're like, okay, what's the next step after this? I want to improve my mobility, or I saw all these cool things you're doing on your social media. So I want to do those. So the benefit of social media is now that it's probably about 50-50, which is pretty cool, which I love that.
Let's talk about the experience of like modern day PT or whatever it may be. So, for instance, I've had a few experiences where, and I just kind of gave up on them, where I had a couple, injuries and I went into like my local hospital. Let's say it rhymes with
Uh,
miser.
okay,
And,
yeah.
um, and I go in and I see someone and they see me for just a few minutes, right? And then they kind of, do their sort of, determination of what's happening. And then they give me a printout, literally paper printout of some middle-aged guy in khakis with a polo shirt on doing various movements, and they hand it to me and see you later.
Yeah.
And that's all she wrote.
Hmm.
So can you expand on what's happening there?
What's happening there? Like, how much time do we have for that? Because that's a whole different thing to unpack in terms of just the lack of time and attention that people are getting, and they're just kind of being that's the whole medical system in general, which is like that's I don't really want to expand on that because I don't know, I'd be complaining at that point in time, I'd be whining. But what's wrong with that is there's a couple of things that's what's wrong with that. From a standpoint of like the exercise selection, they're giving you a handout. They're just sending you on your way. So there's no progressions, there's no build out. So in your head as the individual, like, okay, I'm just going to do these exercises and this will fix my pain. Well, maybe, or maybe That's like the step one that you need to know, like fundamentals class as a white belt. But how do we progress these? You need to take these things to step 10, 11, or 12 with a lot of these exercises for back pain, for hip pain, for shoulder pain to get out of pain. And the disservice they're doing by handing you that and just telling you to do those exercises, you as the patient, even if you're going to be completely consistent or diligent with them, if it's not working, you start to run into this chronic pain loop because you think something's wrong with me or something has to be more serious when maybe the stimulus that you've been giving on these exercises, you're just beyond it. Like it'd just be like continuing to play close guard forever and never expanding your game. Like we need to progress it. It's kind of the same way here, and that's the first biggest problem right there. Just giving you step one exercises and never building from there. The other is probably the lack of education and knowledge you're given there. So now you're also running the risk of developing what's referred to as yellow flags or like fear avoidance behaviors. Like, "Oh, should I be afraid to bend over forever now? Like, how do I do this movement? Should my knee go over my toes? Should I, not roll onto my back?" Or I'm trying to think of like provocative positions, but they don't do a good job communicating. And you as the patient, now you're starting to get scared of these things that should be normal movements too. So those are probably my two biggest like problems with it right off the gate.
I love the analogy, and I've heard you mention this before of the green, yellow, red flags because I've seen this so much. Like myself, like it's just I'm afraid of squatting now, right? Because the day after I just have shoulder pain or back pain or something, right? Could be technique, form, whatever it may be. But and you see this all the time. I know that. So can you talk to me about these degrees of like the red, yellow, green, and fear of movement in general? Because that seems like such a thing that people don't think about, but it's like it's there. Whether it comes to actual weightlifting at the gym or even in jujitsu as well.
Yeah, so like first I want to touch on what you said and then I'll kind of circle back to like what yellow
Please.
and red flags are. So
Okay.
the example of like squatting, I'm afraid to squat because I'm sore the next day. So this is an awesome example because a lot of people are going to associate that with like back pain with deadlifting or I have some pain or discomfort the next day. It's like, oh my God, like this isn't good. I used to have back pain 5 years ago, or I herniated a disc 10 years ago, or whatever. So I always look at the pain the next day. I always tell my patients, it's not failure, it's feedback. It's information on what we did in the previous session. So it's no different than when we roll or when we do a technique. Okay, that didn't work. What do I need to do differently next time as opposed to like, no, I'm never going to do this again. So, in like a deadlift example or in a squat example, okay, I had pain the next day. All right, I did 3 sets of 10. I used 100 kilos. So the pain was a three, or we'll say the pain was a 5 out of 10. So that's a little high for my liking. So the next time we squat, let's go ahead and do this. Let's do 3 sets of 4 to 6 reps. We'll knock it down to like 95 kilos, and let's reassess the data then. Oh, now it was a 3 out of 10 the next day, and it only lasted for 24 hours as opposed to a week. Okay, now with that information, like we're in this gray area sweet spot where I'm like, okay, I want you repeating the same thing again. And let's say if we have a better outcome where the pain's down to a 2. So it's not pain, discomfort, especially after lifting, is rarely black or white. It's typically these shades of gray where it's like, let's take this data, let's interpret it, and let's use it moving forward. No different than the feedback when we get with rolling. It's like, oh, that worked. Or, oh, I just like, the first time you see something,
Mhm.
like an instructor will tell you something a million times, a coach will tell you something a million times, but until you see it live in a roll and it clicks, it's like, that's what they've been saying. Like,
Mhm.
that's how I think of everything when we're interpreting the data here with soreness. Now to your question on like what are yellow flags and red flags.
Mhm.
So yellow flags are, we're going to call them fear avoidance behaviors. These are things like it's like having a negative outlook all the time. Like, oh,
Mm.
woe is me. I'm never going to get better. I have this pain forever.
Right.
And there's a massive component where we're not going to get you out of pain because it sounds kind of cheesy. You don't have a positive outlook. You physically don't think you can get out of pain. And that's probably a third of the puzzle right there. So like yellow flags or stuff like that, where we just have really bad, for a lack of a better word, attitude. We're afraid of movements. We're scared to death of something like bending forward, flexing our spine, squatting, anything like that. Where if you had a provider that instilled confidence and communicated with you as opposed to spend 5 minutes and gave you a handout, we can avoid a lot of those yellow flags.
Oh, wow.
And then red flags are red flags make up a smaller percentage, and the red flags are what everyone thinks they're afraid of but rarely run into, and these are like medical emergencies. Like we've just lost control of our bowel or bladder and we're shitting ourselves and we need to be sent. Like that's a go to the ER right now. Like do not go on YouTube. Dial 911. Those are serious, but smaller percentage right there. So yeah, that's what I'd say on the yellow and the red, and just how I interpret movement. And I want people to realize pain doesn't necessarily mean something bad's going on all the time.
Yeah, and you mentioned stressing the body and these pain range. You were the analogy that you gave of the weightlifting thing that I gave actually was like you say, okay, we're down to a 3 in terms of pain, whatever that may mean to you, versus the 5 we were at or whatever. I've heard you mention something like you do want to be in a certain range of stress all the time. Give some context of what you mean by that.
Yeah. So with the pains, like God, wouldn't it be perfect if we had never experienced any pain whatsoever? First of all, anyone that's doing jujitsu is never gonna not have pain. If you are, what are you doing and where are you training?
Yeah,
Because
good luck.
yeah, right. But furthermore, that seems like a pretty boring and dull life if you never experience any pain. You're never doing anything exciting, pushing yourself, challenging yourself, anything like that. So when we're looking at pain, and especially with clients and patients that come in that have been dealing with chronic pain, and they're just so at this point in time, like walking on eggshells all the time. You know what I mean? Like afraid to do something. I always tell them if we're looking at pain, 10 out of 10 being the worst, 0 is no pain. If you're at a 3, if you're with your example, I think with your knees or your back or your shoulders, or if I have a patient that's got a bad back, if we're not passing a 3, sometimes a 4 even out of 10 on the pain scale, it's very unlikely we're doing damage. I always use the analogy that your pain scale or your pain alarm system in your brain, your nervous system, is probably it's a little oversensitive. Think of it like a fire alarm. The fire alarm can go off if I have a candle lit in the kitchen. It's not always going off because the apartment's burning down. It's kind of the same idea with pain. Just because you're feeling some doesn't mean everything's about to explode. And more often than not is probably the case that it's probably not going to explode. So that 3 to 4 is it's a good buffer of knowing, oh, you're probably okay. You can continue to work through this.
Now, in jujitsu, a lot of people sort of rely on different type of things, right? So some
Wow.
people are like they rely on they're just strong or size. Other people rely on it being explosive. A lot of other people rely on flexibility, things like that. I was talking to a Hicks and Gracie black belt, a gentleman named Henry Aiken, and I used to really rely a lot on my flexibility. I have decent hip flexibility, and what I would find is oftentimes at end of range, and this is what he told me, you can be Adolfo, you can be as flexible as you want. The issue is when you're at end of range, unless you're strong at end of range, the potential for injuries, is and to be compromised is high. Can you talk about that sort of balance between flexibility and strength, end of range? How can a flexible person get stronger end of range? That kind of just idea and those connections there.
We need to train the ranges that we want to be strong in. So, for example, with like the hip, is there a position in particular that you feel like you're flexible in, but you could be compromised in an end range there if there's a specific position?
Uh, let's use your butterfly example, right?
Yeah.
I can really sneak in my feet from a very compromised, almost chest to chest, right? Someone's on top of you, and I could sneak that foot in, and your knee can be flared a bit far. Your foot could be pushed up a little. You know what I mean? Where that you get that kind of knee tension, that type of thing. The
So,
flexor is kind of at end there. So you talk to me about that.
So yeah, if like you own that position, if you're strong in that position, if you can control that position, it's probably relatively safe. For me, for example, like the bringing my heel to my butt on my left knee, I can do it in a very controlled, passive, like let me ease into it. I by no means own that range of motion where I'm strong and I could hoist someone up like 30 pounds heavier than me during a roll where they're really spastic. That is not owning it. Just because I can get into it, or if I was to really warm up and work my knee in, that's not the same as you could get into it cold, no problem, and you feel strong, confident in that position. So to answer that question, I would say if you feel comfortable, you're trained, you're strong in those range of motions, they're relatively safe.
So let's talk about the spectrum of budget from the college kid who's eating ramen and who just wants to get stronger and be more fit versus money is no object guy.
Wow, right.
I'm the executive and I can afford to fly in west to have privates so I can be optimized. Can you give me the spectrum of things to think about in terms of my physical health?
Man, this is such a good question. Once again, I think we could go back to the walking example that it's not like the things that I think most people should be prioritizing, even though that executive can pay to fly someone in, they could probably have a cold plunge, a sauna.
Yeah, hyperbaric chambers.
Yeah, exactly. All that shit nowadays.
Yeah.
Is that person sleeping 8 hours a night? What are
Mm,
their stress levels like?
mm,
Because people need to understand with pain, with injuries, and trying to stay healthy and avoiding them. So we can look at it from three pieces. We can look at the biological aspect of it, like what's the tissue issue? Like what have we injured? But there's also the psychological, so like our fear around movement, and then the social, so like friends, family, stress around money, stuff like that. Like my first patient that I ever worked with had what's referred to as foot drop. It's a very, very serious injury. He got better quicker than some people that I've worked with that just have like tweaked their back where they don't even really have anything severe going on. And that first patient was a billionaire. He had no stress. He was the happiest guy I've ever seen, for go figure. So those other psychological and social components can really play a massive factor that people don't want to realize because you really can't sell those things as like a product or a supplement or something when it comes to recovery and longevity and staying healthy. So, like, that's kind of back up my answer of like, are they sleeping 8 hours? What does their diet look like? Are they consuming enough protein? Are they consuming enough carbohydrates if they want to roll, like, if they want to roll and train regularly, because if we're going to maximize the amount of time we're getting in on the mat, like, are they recovering in between? What's their hydration like? Like
mm.
those things that are just so unsexy, like, should I be using cold plunge or sauna? Whoa, that's like not the question to be asking, like, are we sleeping 8 hours? Are we generally a happy person and stressed? The longer I do this, the more I people's well-being, how stressed or little stressed there are, all those other things might even be more important than a simple mobility restriction of the hamstrings or the hips contributing to a chronic lower back pain
Mm.
case. Like, yeah, there's lots of cool stuff we can do, but if you're not sleeping 8 hours a night, we're putting the whatever the saying is, the cart before the horse.
You're familiar with a lot of these different worlds, CrossFit and
Yeah.
all these is snowboarding, which I love too, and all these other things. I've noticed that sometimes we'll get CrossFit guys come in, never done jujitsu, and then they're broken, like for the physically, right? For the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
and they thought, man, I am physically fit. I don't understand why I'm so sore, or I need to take some days off or whatever. Conversely, also, jujitsu people maybe go climbing, right? They decide, oh, I'm going to do this rock climbing stuff. And they're like, oh God, I thought it was a lot stronger than this, or do CrossFit or whatever too. Can you talk about what's going on physically when we try these different disciplines and people who thought they were optimized feel like they're compromised?
I like that. You just described my first jujitsu class and the experience I had because I thought I was going to be fine. And I got manhandled by somebody my size that couldn't even bench press 95 pounds.
Yeah.
So, to your point, it's very similar to when we were talking about strength, like ranges are gained and solidified in the range they're trained in. Same thing, like when it comes to the skills we're working on. They're going to be specific and dependent to what we do on a regular basis. So you take someone that's extremely fit and is extremely strong, but you tell them to go swim as fast as they can and hard as they can. They're going to be extremely inefficient. They're going to waste energy as opposed to somebody you watch swimming that can swim well. It doesn't look like they're expending a lot of energy. That's no different than jujitsu. You take that guy, everything is in a max attempt because they just don't understand the technique. And that's where technique and understanding what you're doing and the skill acquisition involved are extrememely important because if you
Great
don't have
point.
those qualities, we can't apply any of our fitness or our strength that we have because it's useless. It's extreme, which was probably why I kept going back to jujitsu because I was like, oh my God, I am helpless here. And I thought I was physically fit, strong, and I'm getting, beat up by 110-pound girls,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
like,
I remember
what is
that
what
days.
is
Yeah.
wrong?
Yes.
I still am, 5 years
Same at
later, so
times.
it's fine. So it's gonna be very specific dependent, and just because you're good at one thing, it's not gonna transfer to a broad range of other things. No different than you're good at just jujitsu. You might be shit at wrestling if you decide you want to stand up here because it just doesn't transfer over. You do have things that transfer over somewhat, kind of like wrestling transfers pretty well to jujitsu. A lot of the
Mm,
guys that come in. So
mm.
maybe a lot of those cardiovascular qualities maybe are helping you out more than you realize, but you just suck at it because you're just so deficient in the skill that you can't be the least bit efficient.
I see. So the inefficiencies can cause like a physical
100%.
equal. Okay. 1 + 1 = 2. I see.
100% that it'd be the equivalent of like having a straight jacket on or something trying to do jujitsu, regardless of how strong or physically fit you are. If you lack the skill, you're just not going to be efficient with it. I think the swimming example, and you tell someone to swim really fast, but they have no concept of like really good technique, they can swim and not drown, they're going to gas themselves out as opposed to somebody that just glides through the water there that's super efficient.
I want to talk about philosophical differences within your space,
God, okay.
in the context of your world, because I've seen a lot of different sort of mindsets within your space and so-called experts online, right? Which they may have the certificates and the degrees and the clients, etc. Can you talk to me about like some that you observe, some examples of that? Oftentimes, I like to hear different opinions so I can take it in and hopefully make an informed decision, but please give me your thoughts.
A lot of it comes, the ones that frustrate me at least, a lot of it comes from fear mongering, making you scared of doing A, B, C, or X, Y, Z. So now you need my help. Or creating another really big one is creating fake problems to then sell the solution to it. So things like an anterior pelvic tilt, or you stand a certain way with your posture, or your cervical spine, you have a straight neck, your cervical spine position. Those are the ones that are standing out to me right now.
Yeah, those are big ones.
But you're creating a fake and that person might not have any pain with that anterior pelvic tilt. They're totally fine. They're totally functional. They're lifting heavy. They feel great. They're thriving. But now you've put in their head, oh my God, something's wrong with me. What happens if this anterior pelvic tilt 5, 10 years later leads to this problem because this person says it possibly can? So now the person with the anterior pelvic tilt has basically, they are going down a rabbit hole, we could say, trying to fix a problem that doesn't even need to be fixed. And they're creating something in their head that's not even there. Those are the things that really frustrate me when we're creating fake problems for people and then, obviously selling the solution or scaring people to thinking something's wrong, like coming out of neutral spine or the knees going over the toes or reaching your arms overhead or any number of these positions. Those are the things that just really, for me, because to the people that are uneducated, they have the best interest in mind. They just want to take care of themselves. That's it. I want to do whatever I want to do for as long as I can. But oh my God, I just found out how to have an anterior pelvic tilt. Could this 10 years down the road stop me from being able to roll or play golf or do stuff with my kids?
Mhm.
And it's just it's the fear mongering or the you're going to regret this later when no there's nothing to back that up outside of just selling your snake oil product. And I think it's just really that's the one that really frustrates me because we're scaring people with that have the best interest in mind, and there's just so much information at everyone's fingertips and everyone has everything available now
Mhm.
that they're just getting flooded with. And once they see one thing, your phone's listening to you, so you're just going to get hammered with 9 other guys that are selling the same thing just a different way. So if you saw at 9 in the morning, by 5 p.m. you're having a panic attack around your anterior pelvic tilt when there's nothing to be afraid of at all behind that.
You're right. I'll see all these different experts, and I don't want to have to be a Dr. Wes Hendricks. I don't want to have to educate myself with that much years of studies. I got a life. I've got all these other things I want to be good at, and I want a solution. And when I hear something like I'm out of alignment and I have a pelvic tilt, as for your example, but I'm perfectly healthy feeling, I don't want to freak out about that.
Yeah, well, so the out of alignment's another one because like you're totally in alignment. You can't physically go out of alignment. I don't even know where that came from. But if we could go on another tangent there, because you said
Please.
something interesting with, I feel perfectly healthy. This is the interesting thing about pain. We can have a tremendous amount of pain going on and have zero damage, no damage whatsoever. And people see this all the time. They're in so much pain, they go to the emergency room.
Yeah, they get MRIs.
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't find
X-ray, and
anything.
they tell them they're fine. And they're like, leave, go home, because the emergency room is if you're dying, and they've ruled out that you're not dying, so they get you out of there. But you can't figure out why you're in so much pain. But now here's the kicker. The flip side, somebody that can, and I don't want to scare anyone here after I just like ranted on people scaring people, but somebody could have zero pain, feel totally healthy. But if we were to take an MRI of their lumbar spine or their knee for whatever reason, there could be a disc herniation on that MRI. There could be a torn meniscus in that knee, but you're having zero symptoms. I think something by like age 40, something like 60% of people have lumbar disc herniations that are asymptomatic. So
Wow.
those are, in theory, a terrible injury, but you're not having any pain whatsoever, zero pain. So it's just that, once again, like the pain topic that we were talking about earlier, it's so much more complex and nuanced than you're hurting or you're not hurting. And at the end of the day, if someone feels great, they're thriving, they're happy, I think that's what matters more than what's going on from a mechanical or a biological standpoint. Because like, if we were to take an x-ray, you might look terrible on an x-ray, but you're like, I feel great, good. I didn't want to take, I wish someone didn't take an x-ray of you. That was stupid, because there was no reason to take that imaging.
That's fascinating. I have an example of a loved one who, same thing as your example. They went to the hospital. They couldn't find anything. MRIs, X-ray, nothing. They couldn't find anything. And this person was sleeping literally, if you can even call it sleeping, on their knees
Yeah.
in the prone position with their head over their couch, like each for weeks and weeks and weeks before, and starting and trying a plethora of different solutions and people that they were seeking.
They go down the rabbit hole. They're trying every single solution under the sun, and the longer it goes on, the worse they get scared, they lose hope.
Hmm.
Every failed solution is just robbing from their emotional bank account of, am I gonna have this for the rest of my life? Like,
Yes.
people think this back pain is like herpes or something. Like, we're stuck with
Yeah.
it
Well,
now,
that's my life. Yeah, totally, man.
Yeah,
I guess I'm
yeah,
gonna have to sleep on my
exactly.
knees every night
Yeah,
forever.
like, am I gonna lose my mind, and like, because I'm not gonna get
Yeah.
any sleep?
Yeah.
Literally, somebody, what you just described, somebody signed up with our team literally on Monday. The wife found my ad while she was in the emergency room with her husband. And by Tuesday, they had signed up, and they were already on a call where because they were given a handout, just like you said. No explanation of what's going on, no timeline in terms of like, what should I be doing? What can I do? This person's scared to death to do anything now. And in a lot of these situations, like your family member or your loved one probably just need a little reassurance, a little bit of guidance, and a little bit of patient education, understanding, hey, you're going to be in pain for a little while. This is normal. Don't freak out about it. We need to get through this acute period. Once we get over this little hump, now we're just going to start doing some light movement. Oh, it still hurts? Don't freak out. That's normal. Like, this is fine. We're going to continue on. And just having that reassurance, because a lot of the times in that situation, your loved one, maybe they start to feel a little better and start to do something, goes, oh God, like
Hmm.
I feel it still. Like, oh, I can't do anything. But then it's like they're afraid to hurt themselves by doing something, but then by not doing anything, they're equally making it worse. It's like they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. And it really just comes down to a lack of education, and it's not their response. It is their responsibility. Like, it's always on you, but the providers should have done a better job of educating that individual on what they need to be doing. Because I think that's what's missing in our profession is more education, more guidance, more reassurance, and not creating fake problems that need a solution. We're out of alignment, or this hip is out, or something like that. No, you're having a little discomfort. You might have you rolled 5 times last week. You normally roll 2. Not a big deal. Like, let's back it off. Go to class next. I want you to go to class. Just drill. Don't roll. And then we'll reassess at the end of the week. Like, we don't need to make big problems here. Like, it'd be your back hurts after row. Oh, you can't go to jujitsu. Flexion, rounding your spine is so bad. Don't go
Mm.
for at least a month. Take it
Mm.
off completely. And now you've just created a problem in their head that they don't need. There's so many people that are fine. Why is this person not fine? They
Yeah.
probably just had a little too much stress. Maybe they did too much jujitsu. Maybe they didn't sleep that much that week. They have a newborn kid. The kid took a crap on the carpet. Who know? Like, life happens. But to jump to that conclusion or that extreme, and now this person's afraid to do the thing that they enjoy doing, and I could make the argument that that enjoyment around that thing is better for their entire well-being as opposed to the risk of maybe tweaking their back.
Yeah, and it's the common trope is that we go see our general practitioner, whether it be your provider,
Yeah.
and it's always like, well, you need to quit jujitsu,
All
right?
right.
Or you need to stop for a year, or something like that. And naturally, what do we all do? We don't quit. We continue,
Yeah.
and then you
Because it's
know,
just it's extreme or the other. And I think that's such bad advice because, like when we were talking before about the biological, psychological, and social components of pain, that social component, my God, for somebody in their late 30s, early 40s, if you have a family, that might be your only you time where you get to go bro out with the guys, have a social experience. Because, like, do people in their 30s and 40s really have friends anymore? Like,
right,
I have one friend and I made him
right,
move to Miami with
yeah,
me. Like, he's my lifelong friend.
yeah.
So I think that's a massive component. So if you can go to class and you enjoy the people that you're in class with, my God, I would tell somebody 95% of the time to go to fucking class, even if you had a constant 3 out of 10 pain, because I think the benefits of the social experience and the enjoyment that that brings to that individual is so much more powerful than oh, your back fucking hurts. Well, of course, you fucking have tight hips and you sit at a desk for 10 hours a day. Like, obviously, let's do something about it and not ignore it. So, like, maybe don't roll for the time being, or let's do some positional rolling, but still go to class, still drill. God, to say don't do this, that's such bad advice.
Yeah. What if you are that person? And there are a lot of these people at the academy that, look, I want to do CrossFit and I want to do jujitsu or I want to do jujitsu and I want to go climbing or I want to do jujitsu and I want to be a snowboarder. Is there a too much? I know this all depends again on your
Yeah,
age
yeah,
and all this stuff. And
of
but
course.
but please,
I think the first thing is, like, remember, too much too soon of anything is what's going to cause an injury. That's the first thing. So if you're consistently drilling, rolling 4 or 5 times a week, but then winter comes along and then you immediately start snowboarding 4 or 5 times a week and you keep with the jujitsu, we didn't slowly introduce the snowboarding. What would be a practical protocol here is, as snowboard season ramps up, once, twice for maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Then the next week, 2 to 3 times. Maybe do that for a couple weeks. Then the next, you see how I'm just gradually building up? Or if you're like, well, snowboard season's just this little bleep of time, downplay the jujitsu so you can get more snowboarding in. Or maybe we're not going to roll as much and we're just going to drill because that's 9 times out of 10 what's really going to rob our recovery and risk our injury. It's not going to be drilling most of the time. So, like, the concept to keep in mind when we want to juggle multiple things or even just do one thing, too much too soon of anything is how we're going to get an injury. When we go 0 to 100 miles an hour, that's where we're going to run into a problem, regardless of age. Because, like, I remember some of the schools I've trained at, these instructors are 41, 42, 45, rolling all day long. And yeah, they have all sorts of injuries, but for all intent purposes, they're doing it, they're showing up, they're having to put out when those guys want to go hard, they're not letting up because they've done it for so long. So it's just a buildup. That's what I would say with anything. If you want to do CrossFit, and I don't think any of those things are wrong. I have no problem with CrossFit. I have no problem with if you want to be doing snowboarding, jujitsu, anything like that. It just needs to be we just need an intelligent ramp up there with anything.
okay. Now, another thing I want to discuss too, and you have a lot of background and experience with this, is I don't know, we can pick on chiropractors or whatever it may be, but this idea of adjustments,
Yeah,
because there's all these different people that they recommend, going to get adjusted. And it seems much more of like a passive thing where someone's sort of doing something to you, and then you might get a shorter, medium term sort of solution. And then
yeah,
you have to keep going to this individual, keep going back and back and back and back to just be par, right? If
yeah,
you could even call it par versus something where you're actually exercising yourself or strengthening yourself or something like that. Can you talk about the philosophy of adjustments and short-term solutions, if
And
it's even that?
the philosophy of adjust. I didn't pay attention. I didn't pay attention in philosophy class at chiropractic school, so I'm not the person to ask about this. So, and I guess it really depends on, because there's a broad spectrum in terms of what people think they're doing and what's actually going on. So that pop, that adjustment, it's called a cavitation. It's literally just, it's like bubbles or
Air,
within
right?
the joints, but that's literally what that sound is. It's not something going back into place. With that said, though, when we go back to the psychological component, people hear that pop and they chill out, they relax. It feels great. I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? As long as an adjustment isn't like contraindicated where it'd be unsafe because somebody has some pre-existing thing, sure, get adjusted. Now, the issue we run into is if we were, the analogy is you become a crack addict, where you like that crack or that pop. If you're relying on that and you think you need that to get out of your pain or discomfort or get relief, now that's where we've developed an issue here, because now you're relying on someone else constantly. And all that is like the joints, it's literally the space between your joints are basically far, and that's that noise. So for you to get that audible sound and you feel better instantly, that should probably also tell you there's something else going on where we probably don't need it. You know what I mean? It's more of a
Yeah, right.
psychological thing. So if you want to get adjusted, sure, have at it. It's not doing what you think it's doing. There's probably going to be some, it's more of a placebo benefit. Oh, and I'm going to get so much hate from this, probably, depending on who's listening to this. It's more of a placebo benefit, no different than like, have you ever seen rock tape or kinesio tape or any,
Yeah,
like,
KT tape. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
that stuff, like all that is, it's just stimulating the mechanoreceptors on your skin. It's not doing any of the things it says it does. But if you feel better about yourself, you feel more supported, you're more at ease, you're more relaxed, have fucking at it. Throw on the
Mhm.
tape. If you chill out when you hear that pop, have at it. Now, if you can only do something after you get adjusted, or you can only go to jujitsu when you throw on rock tape on your back or K tape, now that's an issue. When in reality, what we should be doing, or what a good provider should be doing, like if you want to adjust the person because they feel good and they have some sort of association with that adjustment, have
Mhm.
at it. Knock yourself out. I don't care. But then let's follow up with empowering that person to gain the confidence they need to do the things that they're afraid of doing. So if they're going in to get their back adjusted, because their back is out, they think their back is out of alignment, or somebody at some point in time in their life told them their SI joint goes out or their lumbar spine goes out, but then when they feel that pop, they instantly feel better. Sure, I'll placebo the shit out of someone all day long and I'll pop their back if they want to, but then we're going to follow it up with, okay, like let's go through proper hip hinging, deadlifting, let's go through proper flexion of the spine, so you don't develop these fear avoidance behaviors where you're scared to death to even pick up your 3-year-old child off the floor
Mhm.
here. I think it goes back to, once again, like kind of how I was talking about any doctor not empowering the person. Like here, right, like same thing right here. We need to empower that patient to get back to the things they're scared of. The things, like I feel like a pretty general rule in life, the thing that you're trying to avoid doing is probably the thing you should be doing. Kind of like standing up with me and like I hate standing up. I'm sitting on my ass immediately. I'm like, I probably need to go find a gym to specifically do wrestling because I hate standing up so much. Like that's what we need. You're afraid of deadlifting because you hurt your back deadlifting. We need you fucking deadlifting. The thing that hurt your back can also be the thing that heals it long term. The adjustments are great short term. I don't care. Throw tape on it. We'll scrape you with a spoon. We'll throw e-stim on. You feel better. You're relaxed. I don't give a like. I care. I could care less what you. I'll sprinkle crystals over you if it has you chill out and relax. But eventually, we need you picking up those heavy things again. Because if not, we're going to develop those yellow flags, those fear avoidance behaviors, where the longer it goes on, the more psychological stress we have around it. And I can tell you, somebody that's been avoiding deadlifting for years, the thought of telling them to go deadlift, like if you were like, you have to go deadlift that bar right now, there's like no ifs, ands, or but, like, I don't know what scenario that would happen in. But you tell them to do that, they are going to have like a mini panic attack, and all of the cascade of chemical reactions going on in their body is they can give themselves pain or a flare up by not even lifting the bar. Literally, they can cause their back to go into spasm because they're in such a fight or flight and they haven't even picked up the bar. So, like, there's so much like, I don't want to say pains in our head, but we can create so many problems the more fear we have around something. So, yeah, that was a long winded way to say fucking deadlifting if deadlifting hurt your back. Like, go deadlift if it hurt your back.
But on that point too, you mentioned some of these things like KT tape or whatever. Some
Yeah.
people swear by knee sleeves, right? And knee compression. But there's been some research I know that says that doesn't really do anything or doesn't help. Your thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah, so if you're relying on that, if that is 110% of your rehab protocol, like, I tore my meniscus. Okay, once the doctor clears me, I'm just going to wear an Anaconda. What's the brand? It's the Anaconda one. That's the
I don't
big one.
know.
Okay.
That's what he said, not me.
Whatever the brace is, whatever the brand is, like, if that is 100% your return to play protocol, you're screwed. Like, you're going to have another injury. That's doing nothing. Now, if you want to wear it and it's not inhibiting or modifying your movement, or it's not masking something either, because that can be another big one. It can just be masking something and you can just be working through it and you're just going to lead to another catastrophic injury. Like, in a perfect world, I'd say don't wear it at all and do your due diligence of the rehab, strengthening the range of motion, progressively build back up to these positions, kind of like what we talked about with snowboarding and jiu-jitsu. If you have a knee injury, you want to get back to jiu-jitsu, okay, you're just not going to get cleared and on day one roll again. Just drill, then work positional work, then work with partners that you're comfortable with that you know aren't going to be spastic. So it'd be like a 6-month process even once you're cleared. You want to wear that shit and just psychologically makes you feel better? Have at it. Who am I to say? But at the end of the day, it's not doing what it's saying it's doing. It's probably causing more harm than good because people are using that as a crutch to not doing their homework, basically. You know what I mean? It's like what supplement should I take? Okay, how much protein are you getting in? Like, you ate as much protein as my 3-year-old niece today, and you're asking me what supplement you need to be taking. You know what I mean? Like, we're majoring in the minors here on this one. You know what I mean?
Well, let's talk about shoulder injuries, right? I hear about that a lot in jujitsu, various degrees, whether it's like a stress, a flare up, whatever it may be, partial tear, full tear. What is it with the shoulder? What's going on in the shoulder mechanically, physiologically that we need to understand in terms of movements? We're doing like, almost like bench movements, weird diagonal sort of, movements and
Yeah.
over, extending the range of the shoulder rotation. Can you talk about the shoulder in general?
So the shoulder's super complicated. There's there's a lot of muscles going. It's like lower back.
Right.
That's made up of a lot of things. Shoulders made up a lot of things too. Even just saying, when people say the rotator cuffs is what? It's the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, the teres, the subscapularis. All these muscles make up, you know what I mean? And I think something like, I don't know, I haven't had to take a test in a while, but I think like 20 something muscles attached to your scapula, which is the chicken wing. For people that don't know, it's the chicken wing thing on the back of your back.
Mm.
So the shoulder it's a super complex, say, joint, whatever. So I guess the question is, why are there so many shoulder injuries?
And you probably address them in a plethora of different ways, right?
Yeah, a lot of it's coming from we'd say lack of strength, lack of mobility. Once again, not progressively overloading it the way it should be, doing too much too soon. I think that's the theme that's going to come back with everything here. We're doing too much too soon, training, working in ranges that we're not exposed to on a regular basis, so we're not used to it. It's kind of like if we look at lumbar flexion. Lumbar flexion isn't inherently bad, but we just need to be trained in that range. Same with the shoulder. We're going into jiu-jitsu, getting cranked into internal rotation with Kimuras, Americanos, external rotations. You know what I mean? All these different positions that we've never been put in, and now not only are we getting put into it, we're getting forced beyond end range depending if you've got a nice partner or someone that's maybe a little too aggressive there. And we're just constantly pushing past its limit, past its capability. And it's just a matter of time before that area in particular, it wants to act up or something breaks or something tears or whatever. And I don't even know if it's knees, back, or shoulders has the most injuries in jiu-jitsu, to be totally honest. Because I work with broad range of people. It's not just jujitsu athletes.
But another one too, I hear too, is these what we call, because I don't know any better, what we call the hip flexors, right? Because we're not used to being in this crunch position
Right?
for so long with resistance, right? As well, so people are constantly thinking they're stretching out these quote unquote flexors or what it may be
Uh-huh.
in here.
Yeah, like by all means, if you want to stretch out your hip flexors, it's not gonna not help. And for a lot of people, it might be the thing they need. Maybe their hamstrings are really tight. Maybe their hip external rotators, internal rotators are really tight. Maybe they need to work more on spinal segmentation. Maybe they need to strengthen the hip flexors. There's so many things, and I don't know why I don't know when the hip flexors became such like a buzzword. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like the thing.
yeah.
Kind of like BBC 157. Everyone, oh, I need BBC 157. I need looser hip flexors. It's like you always hear those things mentioned. Sure, a lot of people have tight hips. I don't think there's anything wrong with stretching it, but your back pain might be a little more complex, like we've kind of already talked about, than your chronic back pain specifically might be a little more complex than just tight hips. But by all means, strengthen your hips, mobilize your hips, like don't ignore those things.
Now, you mentioned a word I want to talk about is mobility. What does that mean to you? How do we improve mobility?
Mobility to me is really no different. Like it's a quality here, just like strength, cardiovascular fitness. And really for mobility now, I don't really separate it from strength training. It's all the same thing. It's just become a cool buzzword at this point in time. If anything, we're just with mobility, we're training end ranges or larger ranges of motion or extreme ranges that people normally don't get into. So that's been termed mobility. But for me, like a goblet squat could potentially be a mobility exercise for somebody. A Bulgarian split squat could a Bulgarian split squat, depending on how tight your hip flexors are, you're getting your hip put into hip extension, that could be great for your hip flexors or to just get a psoas stretch or whatever you want to talk about it as. So, like, to me, those are great mobility exercises, but no one would think of it like that. So, everyone thinks of mobility as like these nuanced stretches or something very specific. Mobility is going to be specific to what your goals are, what your problem areas are, and, at the end of the day, like, what is your limiting? Like, what are we working towards? What is limiting you? How can we improve upon it? Maybe it is these nuanced mobility drills. Maybe it's just teaching you how to do a proper RDL and a proper goblet squat or zercher squat or back squat or whatever. That's equally a mobility drill.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about gizmos and
Okay,
tools and
yeah,
stuff.
sure.
We were talking about the hip flexors, and you brought up the psoas. I have this thing that I never use called the Right. It's
Yeah.
like this plastic kind of thingy.
Yeah, it jabs you into your stomach and your intestines.
Yeah, and we all have things like massage guns, these self-massaging devices in general, lacrosse balls even, and things like that. Can you talk about these various gizmos and tools and things, and foam rolling?
So I think it just kind of comes back to a lot of the passive treatments that people use, or my thoughts on like K tape. Sure, if you want to use them all, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. A lot of people love foam rolling as like a precursor to their actual strength training session, as you know, we're lightly ramping up to then go do something a little more challenging. But I could make the argument just hopping on an assault bike for 5 minutes would accomplish the same thing as rolling around on a piece of foam. I try nowadays not to discourage people or be like, you're a fucking idiot for using that foam roller, or why'd you just spend $700 on that vibrating gun or whatever that thing is. But personally, like, is it going to fix your problem? Probably not. Does it feel good and it helps you? Sure. Are you then doing your due diligence of the things we actually need to be working on? I think that's really what matters. I think once it's doing the meat and potatoes, doing the things you need to be focusing on. And I don't think those things are the things that's going to fix your chronic back pain of 10 years or strengthen your hips or strengthen your lumbar spine or strengthen your rotator cuff. Just most of those things are just they're providing temporary distractions or temporary relief for whatever reason. So you feel better for a little bit, but if you have to constantly do it, is it really even addressing your issue? Probably not. But at the end of the day, like, sure, have at it.
Well, let's talk about your process a bit, especially being remote and the experience that your clients would get and how you're diagnosing, how you're progressing, how you're getting data. I've had the pleasure of, working with a couple people in your space too that do something similar. And I say pleasure because I had a positive experience, right? And they apply different programs, your program design. Can you talk about your world in terms of the customer experience and your process?
Oh, wow. That was a lot. I like it. So I think first of all, most people that come to work with us at this point in time, they've had multiple. Rarely does someone find me, and I'm the first person they're working with. They've gone to a bunch of different chiropractors, a bunch of different physical therapists, maybe seen some specialists, and it's just been failed attempt after failed attempt after failed attempt. So that's typically the person coming to us at this point in time, which is good because that means to me that you don't need hands-on treatment if you've had 5 people all doing like relatively the same thing. Is a 6th person doing some slightly different version of what you've already been doing going to help you? Probably not. So like perfect candidate right out the bat to get help remotely. So that's typically the first. I don't want to say qualification because we'll definitely work with people if they just want to jump right to it. But that's the first thing. And then in terms of why we have success, I think a lot of it comes down to, yes, I don't want to like discredit the assessment process. I don't want to discredit our programming by any means because I think both of those are extremely important. But at the end of the day, when someone works with us, the things I say we're going to do, I do it. It's literally that simple. You're going to have a call with me at this time. I show up. I'm going to deliver your program to you at this time. I'm going to get back to you within 24 hours. Like simple, stupid customer service things. And this is just like this is running a business. This is even taking care of somebody with chronic back pain. Just stupid things like that just instills trust in people. And, oh, this guy's on my side. He's on my team. He actually cares. I have him in my corner. Knowing that gives them so much like peace of mind. So then as we're working through the process, if they have a flare up and I tell them this isn't a big deal, they know I'm not full of shit because like we're invested together. So a lot of it's in the beginning, just developing trust. I want people to trust me because if they can't trust me, like how are we going to work through a flare up? Because rarely does rehab ever go perfectly. You want it to go perfectly, but it's an emotional roller coaster. So I think that's the first thing, just following through with what I'm saying I'm going to be doing. It sounds so simple and basic, but that's how I establish trust as a provider when I'm working with these people and giving them the attention that nobody else has given them. I just hired another coach to come onto the team, and I tell
Awesome.
people, yeah, and coincidentally enough, he got the hire. It was between him and someone else, and they were both so close. But the guy I chose has been training jujitsu for 15 years, so
Wow.
I'm like, I think
That's awesome.
that's what kind of tipped him over the head. But like
Oh, wow.
when people come on, I tell them when you're going to work with, the doc that I just hired, you guys are going to text more than he's texting his pregnant wife right now. Like that's how much communication I want people having, because if not, what are they doing? They're going on Instagram, they're going on YouTube, their phone's showing them stuff. By 5 p.m., they're scared to death to bend over and tie their shoe or if they feel something.
Right.
So a lot of it's about education, building trust, knowing it's going to be okay and you're going to get through this. It's not if you're going to get better, it's when you're going to get better. And if we can, like, if someone can feel that, the programming, I don't want to say the programming doesn't matter because I've spent a lot of time educating myself on program design,
Yeah, I
but
bet.
that is the first thing that I think so many people miss is just that level of having that person trust you, know they're going to help you, and you're going to follow through with it. And then just don't do something really fucking dumb with your programming, and they're going to have success. But it was probably not the answer you thought I was going to give there. But that's really how I've been able
That's
to,
a
because
great answer.
I've been doing this now remotely since 2018. So a lot of people in the space have come and gone since. So the fact that I'm not homeless and I can live in downtown Miami, that's literally my secret to success, which sounds it goes back to everything we've talked about: sleep, nutrition, hydration, the simple things, but everyone wants the crazy, sexy answers. And it's
Mhm.
just doing the basic things really well on a daily basis.
Well, I know you have to deliver solutions too. So I'm curious how you manage expectations. Because maybe I'm with you, like I got my back pain or whatever, shoulder pain, whatever it may be. And I'm like, look, man, we've been working with each other for 5 days now. And I'm not better.
I thought you were going to say
what the
five
hell?
months,
I know,
five
right?
days.
5 days, a week, a whole week, man,
Yeah, yeah,
doctor. And
yeah.
I'm not getting any better. What's the delay?
So I think if I would have done enough education in the beginning, we'd be avoiding that. But so yeah, I would say if we'd done enough education in the beginning, they would have expectations by day 5, they wouldn't be getting better. I tell most people if we don't make any major progress for 3 to 4 weeks even, don't think much of it. It's really no different than jujitsu. You might go a few weeks with feeling like you're making zero progress, and everyone's expectations different. If someone can get into the gym for the first time and they go through a movement and not have pain, oh my God, I'm better. Like, or I'm doing better. So,
But doc, I'm only sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night. I'm
oh,
losing my mind, man. When am I
yeah,
gonna be able to sleep through the night a bit more?
uh-huh. I like this. Well, once again, when did that, how long ago, remind me again, how long ago was the injury?
And let's say 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago, right? And what's your pain right now out of 10?
I'm at I like I said, I'm sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night. So I mean, I think that would be an 11, I guess.
11? Okay. So I'd probably push back with the patient at that point in time. That's probably not an 11 because an 11 would be like we're in the emergency room dying.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
I would have to give them shit there. So what we do though, because this is good. I like that you're challenging me here. We have weekly check-in forms where we're tracking things like, okay, what have you slept on a regular basis? What's your hydration been like? What has been a win for you this week? So what are the milestones? Has your range of motion been improving? Because we assess, like, people will post videos on our training platform so we can see every single exercise they're doing on a regular basis. We can use that as milestones throughout the week. But then they fill out a week, like a check-in form, like like I kind of went over towards the end of the week. And we can use that because we're just collecting data. And right now, I would say, I would be totally honest, it's just too soon within the process. You know, we're
Mm-hmm.
5 days into the process.
Mm.
If I would have gotten you out of pain in 5 days, like I'd be charging you 10 times as much here. Like we've identified what's causing the pain. We figured out what we can do. Let's continue to work through that and reassess in honestly another 48 hours. And we're just going to take it day by day at this point in time.
Obviously in person is a tough thing to scale, but even online, it's a tough thing to scale in terms of your business and how many clients you can take on. I remember seeing a post you had of a specific program or a chunk of time that you were going to focus on a handful, I believe, of clients, and you were only accepting a finite amount of them. I guess to some people it would seem like a small amount, but in reality, it's like what you can handle versus, the amount of attention you have to put into it. Can you talk about the scalability of this business?
It really depends on how much of a work-life balance you want to have. Like seriously,
Yeah, yeah. No, you
you know,
said you
I
just hired a new doctor, so
I hired someone new, but some people don't want to work that much. They just want to kind of coast. They want to pay people to do everything for them. It really just, you got to find what fits you and what your personality and how much time you want to dedicate throughout the day. Some people are handling 30 clients, other people are handling 50. Some cases, people are handling 100 clients on a given basis. So it's just how much time do you want to dedicate? What does your ideal day look like and your life looks like? And a lot of people that do the online space also have families. They have children, so they only want to dedicate XYZ or ABC. I don't have any of those. I have a dog that sleeps 12 hours a day over there. Like I have nothing else to do and I'm just so passionate about this. Even though I take certain chunks throughout the year, like what you saw, I have a very high retention rate because once someone stays with us, they get out of pain. Well, then they want to start this journey of, maybe start learning handstands or the splits or some of these cooler things that I post on social media. And man, that's a journey like getting your blue, purple, or brown belt. Like it's not something that's going to happen in 6 weeks or even 6 months. It takes a while. And people honestly, they don't even give a shit after 6 months about the goal. They just love the process and they love going through it and it's a break in their day. But because we deliver such high quality like we're in constant communication, people are with us for 3 5 I have people that are still with me from 2018. So those, like every time I take 5 people on, it compounds and it compounds and it compounds. So like I have full disclosure, I have a lot of people that work with me.
mhm.
And I typically don't take new people on now because I've got somebody else that I'm going to fill his schedule. And once his schedule is full, I'll hire someone else, probably that does jujitsu, just so we all can do jujitsu and have something in common. I feel I can deliver a higher quality of service with more people remotely than I could as in person. In person, there's going to be a cap where like you could only see so many people in a day. And if I want to see more, I'm going to have to cut my visits or my appointment time down, to see that person in that hour 15, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And then I'm also wearing on my body because I have to physically be performing things to them or working with them. So at a certain point, I'm just going to gas out. That's my longevity just wouldn't be there for that. So the scalability, I think I can deliver a higher quality with more people. Or that's how I see it for me, for my personality. Other people might disagree because they love that in-person connection and they think it's a powerful piece. For me and the people that gravitate towards me, they don't need to spend 30 minutes. They just need some direction, they need some coaching, and they need some clarification of things so they don't overwhelm themselves with useless information on the internet, confusing themselves more.
I love the example that you mentioned of the handstand and that type of stuff. I think there's something to be said to be able to, hey, I'm just an average person and I can get through everything okay. I'm not in pain or anything like that, but I've never been able to do a handstand. I'd like to be a little stronger or to be able to do these type of things. In my instance, I've never been a pull-up guy. And I see a lot of your stuff, which is inspirational. And I know through jujitsu as well that when we improve and we can do something new, it's really huge. It seems innocuous to other people, but geez, to be able to do like a handful of pull-ups, would be awesome. Or a
Right?
handstand. Wow.
I think it's that, I don't want to say skill acquisition component,
Mm,
but it's like we're learning
good
something
point.
new as we get older. And I think there's a super high value to, like, yes, going to the gym's great, going through the motions is good. But I think with a lot of the things and why people love doing maybe some of the gymnastic stuff that I program or some of the mobility work once they're out of pain, it's just so much more engaging. You can, like, some people love just doing a chest press or a shoulder press, and I have nothing wrong with that. I think that stuff's great, and I program it for a lot of my clients. But I think we're peeling back the layers of in the onion a little more, and there's just somewhat of a technical component. And for some people, learning a pull up, that is a technical skill at first. There's a strength involved in it as well, but that's skill, which coordinating, using your scapula, breaking at the elbows, pulling yourself up. At first, it's choppy. It's no different than the first time you try to throw an armbar or a triangle. It's super choppy at first because you're trying to figure out how to get everything in unison. And then as the skill improves, the muscular coordination on the pull-up improves, you become more efficient, you get stronger too, so you can rep out more. But like working towards those goals, people just find so much more fulfilling than maybe adding 5 more pounds here or 10 more pounds here. It's great too, and I still do it with my clients, but I think those things, it's just really cool to learn something new, especially as you get older.
Can we touch on that a bit? I love the example that you mentioned of, let's say I'm going to the YMCA and I do the same presses that I do. I do a bench press, I do a seated row, I do maybe a few tricep things, the usual, a few curls and some leg presses or something like that too. And so I figure I've kind of gotten all around workouts, but I can't, for the example, I can't do my pull ups. Have I neglected some muscles? Have I neglected some strength somewhere?
I think everyone should be able to do pull-ups. I think you should be able to control your own body weight
I've heard you mention this
yeah,
before,
to
so
do
yeah,
pull-ups,
that's why I'm throwing
do
this at
do
you.
dips. If you can't control your own body weight, that might be a problem. You know what I mean? Like, you should be up.
But you've seen these guys, like, to your example, where they can bench,
Yeah.
a lot, but yeah, maybe they're not so great at dipping. Maybe they're not so great at pull-ups.
I think it's like being able to just get through a full range of motion squat or be able to perform a full hip hinge or
Mm.
get close to touching your toes. Like, I think these are some, I hate the word fundamental or foundational movement patterns because I think it's kind of stupid and we can like build whole things around where once again we're scaring people into something. No, I just think it's like, if we bring it back to jujitsu, like I was telling my coach the other day, I was like, I hate standing up, and you've probably heard me say it multiple times, but you should be able to stand up if you want to do jujitsu. Like, if
Yeah.
you want to properly defend yourself, learn how to stand up. I think if you really want to call yourself strong, say you have control of your body, and like we're progressing, you should be able to do some pull-ups. Does it need to be insane? No, but I think everyone should be able to rep out 3 to 5 reps, regardless of your age. It might be another discussion on your body weight holding us back, but I have people in their 60s that are training with me that are doing chin ups and pull ups. That just got it in their 60s too. So I don't think it's with outside the realm of possibilities. I just think it's you're kind of like my stand up example. You're ignoring it because you suck at it. So let's address it here. And I think that's something, I think you are leaving stuff on the table if you're not addressing that because there's some weaknesses that we're not taking care of.
Your thoughts when you see someone on their back and having difficulty getting up to just, to a standing up.
There's definitely outcome markers and predictors in terms of longevity and health if you can't get even on and off the floor without that much trouble. I think that's what we're looking into. We're not
Mhm.
even talking about like optimizing at this point
Right.
in time.
It doesn't
This
even
is
have to be jujitsu. Right.
no, like this is just like you should be able to get on and off the floor, no problem. This shouldn't be that painful. Like I know our standards have really become very low in terms of what we expect for people, especially as we age. And maybe that's part of the problem too. Like we have so low expectations of people. Like I don't know if you've ever seen on my Instagram, I've got one guy who's in his 60s. He didn't learn handstands until he was in his 60s because
Amazing.
he
Yeah.
wanted to do it. But like he didn't put a limitation on himself. He had very high expectations. Like I think everyone's standard as we get older and what we think we're capable of doing as we enter our late 30s and 40s and 50s and so on is so pathetic that like nobody has like any expectations to accomplish anything. So like
Mhm.
to your question, like that's a problem if you can't get it on and off the floor, if that's where we were going with that one.
Or difficulty. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
That was it.
exactly. Or even if it's difficult, like I don't care how, unless you're 80 years old, you should be able to get on, even 80, you should be able to get on and off. That's a problem.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes I think I heard from a physio or something. He was doing a seminar and he was talking about, all right, are there any questions? And someone was like, of course, how do I get stronger? Or the usual type of questions. And
Yeah,
one
yeah.
person's like, how do I wipe my own ass until the day I die? And he said that was my favorite question I've ever had in my career.
That's good. So are you asking me how should we be able to wipe our own ass as we get older?
What I'm talking about is like lifelong
Yeah,
ability we should have. You know what I
yeah,
mean? That
yeah.
that type of stuff.
That's way more important than the optimization of things, which is just if you don't use it, you lose it kind of deal. It sounds kind of cheesy, but you stop squatting, you stop reaching your arms overhead, you stop bending forward, you stop flexing your spine, you stop rotating for whatever reason, which,
Right.
that's the movement
Or
pattern of
we
turning.
do this all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just we get confined to these chairs. We don't really do anything else. That kind of circles back to what we opened with that we're not moving. We're walking 500 steps a day. We're moving like a bunch of Legos. And a lot of it's just coming from what's coming from being lazy and not being active. But
Hmm.
a lot of it, I feel like when people reach out to us at first, it's paralysis by analysis. Like they're just so overwhelmed with information that they don't know where to start. They don't know what's good, what's bad,
Hmm.
and they're so afraid to do anything at this point in time. They're walking on eggshells. I can't tell you how many people have come to us thinking they have a problem, and they don't really have a problem. Like it's more of that psychological piece than that biological piece that we talked about.
So I want to talk about your social media because it's so fantastic, especially your video work and how do you how it's evolved and how do you come up with all the ideas and your execution and it's really well done.
Appreciate that. Social media, how do I come up with the ideas? Nowadays, it's really inspired by the people I talk to on a regular basis because so many people reach out to us to talk with us. Like I have calls all day long with prospective people that want to work with us and we do multiple calls. And I just hear the same things over and over again in terms of, I think I have a post coming out where I say like if you can't bone your wife, that's a problem. And do you know how many times I've heard from men that they can't get into certain sexual positions because their back is compromised? These
Oh,
are just
sure. Yeah,
yeah,
sure. I've
and
heard
it's
that.
just it's things that you can't pick up your kids, you can't bend forward
Yeah,
to play with them,
that's huge.
like simple things like that, and their children are a lot of it's like, "Oh, daddy, can we do this?" Or is there like the 3 and 4-year-olds understand daddy has a bad back and they're already asking like we can't do something. So it's just I hear the same thing over and over again on a regular basis. So it's become more about instead of going viral or being clickbaity or whatever, which I definitely do, how do I communicate that these people aren't alone and they're not the only ones experiencing these problems, that it's normal? Other people are telling Wes these problems and they're working with Wes. So hopefully they want to reach out so I can work with them too. Because at this point in time, like I'm fortunate that I'm in a great position that I do this because I truly like I love fucking helping people at this point in time. And I'm just so excited and passionate about helping, empowering people, and having them not be afraid of stupid shit that they should be afraid of, like being able to be in certain sexual positions, or,
Yeah.
being limited where you can't play with your kids, or you're scared to death that doing A, B, C, or XYZ with your child is going to cause a back flare up, or you're going to be out for a week. So a lot of it's just from things I hear from people every day, just telling me their problems.
So I want to talk about the future of your space. So what are you seeing in terms of like new practices, technology,
Man.
data, research, and things?
So we'll start with the coaching field because on this point in time, honestly, like I'm way more of a business owner at this point in time
Yes.
than
Yeah.
I am as a
Entrepreneurial.
practitioner. Yeah, like I'm trying
Yeah.
to make. I've been really working on making the shift more to like we could say a CEO as opposed to a strictly a healthcare provider, which is I was thinking about the other day. I was like, man, I really need to get back to like just going to more continuing education because I enjoy that stuff. But I've spent so much time like working on running Facebook ads, learning AI, like how do I utilize AI?
Yeah, I've been talking to these academy owners and same thing, right? So they become more and more of these business entrepreneurs. You wear a bunch of different hats, you're doing everything, you're putting out the fires, you're dealing with humans a lot and all the legal aspects, maybe cleaning toilets or scheduling, you know what I mean? The
Yeah.
cleaning of the toilets and that type of thing. So please talk to me about, yeah, the future of your space and entrepreneurialism.
So the future of my space, especially in the remote coaching space, like I'll speak to
Mm,
that right now.
mm,
I really think if you don't learn, and I'm still in the process of trying to figure out where AI comes in and how I can best utilize it to help. But I feel like if that's not part of the equation or you're not learning how to use it in the future, you're going to be left behind here. I don't think it's going to be like it's going to take over or replace humans just from, hopefully this doesn't age well, with
yeah,
Terminator
yeah.
coming or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Wes said on that podcast. Now look at it. Because I think, once again, when I was talking about why have I had the level of success I've had with people, it's like remotely, it's because of that human connection. It's not the super sophisticated programming or the overcomplication of like our assessments. It's just, instilling trust in people, and people want that reassurance, at least now, from a human being. So it's not AI is going to replace us, but how do we utilize it best moving forward? And even like what I was just talking about before, like how do I get ideas for social media posts? I take all my calls that I do with people because it's on Fathom because don't want to make sure I forget something. I run it through. Let's give me the talking points here. How do I take this and create this for social media content? It it's streamlining my content so I can do so much more work in so much less time and be way more efficient so I can dedicate more time to people. So I think as a business owner from that standpoint, learning how to utilize that and like where it fits in for like that social media example. And that's just one thing I've just started doing. So that's a big one. Other than that, like how do you continue to speak to people as the industry becomes more and more saturated too?
Yeah.
Like how do you
Yeah.
stand out?
Yeah.
I think people are going to connect into the future, and I'm really gravitating towards the business one because I'm just so on a business kick right now.
I bet.
I think people are gonna you need to start sharing your life more. I think it needs to be less about clickbaity things. I'm
Mm,
gonna start doing way more YouTube in the future and just vlog style stuff. So people aren't going to once again want to work with you if we're talking about coaching because of your knowledge or your credentials, as much
mm.
as you think it's the case. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me on social media and they wanted me to fix their back pain. This sounds so stupid because I wore Vans. They were like, "Oh, I think it's so cool that you wear
Wow.
Vans slip-ons." Yeah, like
Wow.
that was the thing,
Yeah.
like not because I'm a like doctor, or and my profile is Dr. West, but a lot of times people will read that as Drew, and they've reached out to me to help them with their back pain, and they don't even realize that's my they think my name's Drew, and they've still just because they've connected with my content, my personality. So I
Wow.
think sharing more about you and less about like clickbaity informational things or the 3 quick tips, I think that's going to come back a lot because previously, like 10 years ago, vlogs or more of those storytelling styles on YouTube and Instagram are very big. Maybe not
Yeah.
so much on Instagram, but I think needing to share that more because people don't know who's a robot now and who's not a robot. You know what I mean? And then the other one, you've got so many influencers that are just like a pretty face or whatever, but there's no substance. The more someone can learn about you, the more they can trust you. And those people that are might have 1 million followers on Instagram, you wouldn't want to have a 5-minute conversation with them. It'd be like talking to a rock or something. So learning how to story tell and get out is going to be huge moving forward in the like the online remote space for sure.
Yeah, the whole time you're saying this, I'm both dreading it and knowing that you're right. Because I'm not terribly comfortable on camera, and this used to, this started as, an audio only podcast
Yeah.
type of thing. And I was very okay with that just because I enjoy getting the message across and information across. And then sure enough, everyone was like, you got to do video, you got to do video. And then, okay, this. And I do suspect they want to see more personal aspects and that kind of thing, where I try to make the emphasis, the person, the guest, you're the expert and
Mhm.
that kind of thing. But I think you're right. I think you do have to turn the camera around. Everyone's curious about what's going on behind the scenes. And yeah, I think there are
How are you
hooks there.
gonna how are you gonna get that like, know, and trust? Especially, like, once again, so people know you're real. There are so many Instagram videos now that you're like, "Is that AI or is that real?" Like,
True. Yeah.
because if you know them, then you're actually gonna trust them or you're more likely to trust them.
Well, Wes, I want to be respectful of your time and
Of
everything. Was there
course.
anything that we didn't discuss or cover that you think would be helpful or beneficial for the community?
I think the thing, the message that I really got across was really the one rant I wanted to go on was with, you could be in a ton of pain and have no damage and vice versa, and then really just not relying on all these passive modalities and really empowering yourself. And unless we're in a full body cast, you should be doing something. You should be going back to jujitsu. It's just a matter of these different levels. Okay, maybe I'm watching class. Maybe I'm just drilling. Maybe I'm flow rolling. Like there should never be a time where it's like, unless you're like post surgical or something, you should not be going. Like I really wanted to get that across. And the pain just isn't completely biological. There's a lot of that psychological and social that's contributing to your pain as well. Not to overwhelm people anymore or complicate it any further than it needs to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I want people to feel empowered and not be so afraid of everything.
Wes, thank you for everything that you do, man, and all the information you provide and the care that you give for your clients and the rest of us out there that hopefully will become future clients someday.
Appreciate that.
But where can we get more information about you and everything that you're up to, man?
Yeah, so Instagram is where I spend 95% of my time for the time being. So it's just at Dr. Wes Hendricks, and that's where you'd find me. And then that links in the bio to YouTube, podcasts, everything else.
All right, you guys, I am your host, Adolfo Ferranda. Remember, go drink your salt electrolytes, come train with us at North Bay Jiu Jitsu, go buy your dojo hotkeys, and all the additional links that are probably all on filling the screen right now and stuff like that. So thank you all so much for your time, and we will see you guys next time.